Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of the Ferrari SF70H 2017 build from Tamiya. I will be doing the Sebastian Vettel version, number 5 car, as I mentioned in video number 1. And this aspect of the video is dealing with the front cockpit area of the car, the outer shell, the inner shell, and how to deal with the seams that are on it. As you can see in front of me, here are my instructions in my part 1 instructions. I have already put together all these pieces with exception to the bulkhead right here. And the reason why I've done it ahead of time, I don't paint the pieces and then put them together because you can do them all in one shot and eliminate a lot of the seams. So that's this piece right here. And then on the next step you'll see the top part being assembled after I get the interior cockpit area done and painted. So basically what you saw there in that step 1 is this right here. Now all this was put together with the Tamiya extra thin cement and allowed to dry. Now my trick with doing seams, a lot of guys use this. I built a lot of MotoGP bikes and tank halves and fairing halves and such. You glue them together and they have a seam to deal with, just like this. Okay, this seam right here. Now what I did is when you put the pieces together, you liberally brush a good amount of this extra thin cement on there. You let it set for a few minutes while it's together, and then you squeeze it really hard and it forms a bead right here. And what that bead does is basically it's a weld bead, just like it would be on a piece of metal, and it leaves that bead there, which is really just melted plastic. And nothing is a better filler out there, I don't care what anybody says, than the actual material that are being glued together, the melted plastic. So that's what happened here. Now what you do is once you have that dry, this has been drying overnight by the way, because I threw this together last night in anticipation for this video. And what you do next is you basically take, you can take 320, if you do 400, it'll work, but 320 is good. I've got a used piece right here, but it'll work. I never use 150 or 220 or anything like that on plastic because it'll gouge it too much in my opinion, and it leaves scratch marks that you have to go with succession of finer grades to get those scratches out. So what I do basically is I start with 320, and then I do 400, usually 600, and then I finish it off with a sanding sponge that I've got right here. It's 3M ultra fine. I don't even know what the grid is on it, but it's just ultra fine, and that's my finishing touch after doing seam work on areas. So basically what you do is you just take your sandpaper, and I go in a cross sideways pattern and I start sanding. And what you do is while you're sanding, you'll see if you're getting rid of the seam when you go across the seam. It's the best way to go. You don't want to go too hard. You got to try to avoid any kind of details. Luckily, this is just the bottom of the car, so I don't have any details that I got to worry about on the bottom of this thing. But you're going to want to sand it and get it nice and flat, almost like block sanding. And you know, you can go the other way a little bit if you need to. And basically, what the sanding does is gets rid of the seam. Now, guys, you don't have to get this perfect. But you have to get it darn close. Remember, all this is going to get masked off and painted black under here. I imagine on the real car it's carbon fiber, but we're going to stick with black. Like I told you in part 1, we're going to stick with building a really nice, clean, out-of-box, using the decals that are included in the kit as enhancements. I might be lying when I get to some points. I might just say, no, I want to do the you know, the wishbone suspension arms in carbon fiber. I may go that route and not just do them semi-black because they're so exposed. But for the most part, the bottom of the car that would have been carbon here, I'm just going to paint it. It'll look just as nice. And I think if you'll notice if you buy this kit, you people out there that buy the kit, you'll notice that the carbon fiber that Tamiya gives you in the kit, pretty dark stuff. So you got to kind of be on top of it to see the carbon, which is nice. It's nice to have carbon that way. It's almost like I call it surprise carbon, because basically you don't know it's carbon until you get up close, and then it's really impactful to see it on a 1/20th scale or smaller or higher model. It's very, very cool. Now, in this case, or there are cases where the seams just don't come out completely if you sit here and sand on this, and I don't want to jeopardize the integrity of the plastic. So what I'll do sometimes as well is I'll get a little helper out. And if you guys have watched videos that I did for Gravity Colors when I was doing videos for them, one F1 car, like I've mentioned before, was the Ebro McLaren. That car had a lot of seams on it that had to be fixed, or at least filled in. And I showed you that this is your friend when it comes to that, is this liquid surface primer. This stuff works fantastic. And you shake it, give it a good shake, because the stuff is really gooey. To me, it's almost like they take, I guess, regular spray primer and they mix it with liquid cement and make this goo. That's really what I think it is. I don't exactly know what this stuff consists of. It smells good, but you know, obviously you don't want to smell too much of it. And what I'll do with this is I'll use this on the seams as well to give me a nice fill, as I like to call it. Hold on, this thing is hasn't been opened in a while, so it's I got to crack it open with some pliers here. There we go. All right, strong stuff. Anyhow, what I tend to do is I will get a brush out here. Just, you know, your little fine brush. You can clean the brush when you're done with this stuff with lacquer thinner, because this stuff basically is a lacquer-based putty. And I put a good, nice, liberal amount of this stuff on here. You know, this stuff is also good for checking seams or checking your work to see how it is. It does. Does it shrink? Yes, it does. It does shrink up a little bit. But this stuff here will fill in or level out any uneven gaps you have. And you can put it on really goopy and leave it and let it dry. Now this is going to have to dry overnight usually. I let it do that because I want it to get good and hard. And I'll go back at this seam when it's dry. But I wanted you guys to see what I do with this stuff. Very, very, very useful stuff. Now, when I glue this top canopy piece onto this here, when I get to that point, that will basically complete the entire cockpit front monocoque or coque, whatever you want to call that front piece. Everybody's got their own word for it. Just like I say Tamiya instead of Tamiya. I'm working on that, guys. Forgive me. And but I slather that stuff on just like that. Now this needs to dry, and it needs to dry overnight before you sand it. And then I'll wet sand this nicely. Maybe I don't even need to wet sand it. I'll see how it works with 320. Then I'll follow with 400 and then 600. And then what we're going to do, everyone, is we're going to prime this thing inside and out. Then I'm going to shoot the inside of this piece semi-gloss black. I'll show you what I use for semi-gloss black when we get to that piece in the next segment of the video. But I'm going to let this dry overnight, and then we'll come back, we'll sand this, and then I'll go ahead and prime this with the Gravity Colors gray primer surfacer that I mentioned in video number 1. And then we will be shooting the inside of this body with semi-gloss black as per instructions. And we'll also be doing the bulkhead, as you see here. Now this bulkhead, I believe, is slightly visible, and Tamiya tells you to paint this orange. I don't know if they're correct or not, but I've always trusted Tamiya and their color call-outs. They know more than I do. I'm sure they've seen this car in person to be able to do the model kit the way they did and as accurate as they did. So I'm going to go off of their suggestion. And what I'm going to be using is Mission Models, just basic orange here, acrylic, shot through the airbrush onto that bulkhead. And then maybe I'll put a light coat of their gloss coat on there, either by brush or by airbrush, one or the other. And that'll be it for that piece. And that'll get assembled once I paint the interior black. And then we'll get into the next segment, which is getting the top piece on and molded in, and then masking the interior where I've already painted it black carefully. And then we're going to go ahead and shoot the exterior after we prep it in white base coat, titanium white base coat from Gravity, and then the SF70H Rosso F1 Ferrari red. So while we're waiting on the putty there, the brush on Tamiya putty to dry, why don't we paint that bulkhead piece that I mentioned to you with the Mission model paint. Whoops. I mean, I gotta give a shout out to John Tamkin. He's become a pretty good buddy of mine. I haven't talked to him in a while actually, but hopefully he'll see this video and give me a shout out. But he's someone that turned me on to his own paints here. This Mission model paint. It's really good stuff, and I've used it. I used their blacks. Their chrome is really good. You guys that are people out here that are following my my builds on Facebook, on my DT Model Art page, Facebook page, you'll probably see me mention Mission models. Really good acrylic, high quality stuff, and it's not difficult to thin this stuff. You can really shoot this stuff through the airbrush. By the way, that's my airbrush, my Infinity. I got to tell you, this is the most versatile and incredible airbrush that I've ever owned. It's really awesome. I love this thing. But what the mixing ratio of this for a satin finish, which is what I'm going to go for here, is 10 drops of the paint itself, which is the orange, and 2 to 3 drops of the thinner they have. Make sure you use their thinner. Don't just use water. Don't use denatured alcohol or rubbing alcohol or anything. It's not going to work good, folks. You got to use their thinner, and then maybe 2 to 3 drops of the poly. This stuff here. Now this is what makes it have a satin finish and durable finish. This is literally like it's a polyurethane, and it definitely helps. But since I don't believe I need 10 drops, I'm gonna do 5 drops of the 5 drops of the orange, and then I'm gonna do 2 to 3 drops of this poly. Actually, I'm gonna do 2 drops, because we only did 5 drops of the orange. And then I'm going to do, we'll do about 2 drops of the thinner. And then you just mix it all together. I've got to get a mixing stick here. And mix it up. If you need more, you can get more. You know, actually, I probably will need more, to tell you the truth, because I didn't realize it wasn't that much, and I think this piece is going to take a little bit more than what I see in the airbrush cap here. By the way, this Infinity airbrush is a gravity-fed airbrush, not siphon-fed. I do have a siphon-fed Badger 150 that I use for my clear coating, but this one here is gravity-fed from the top. Comes with 2 different size cups. It's great. I am going to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more drops of paint. Another drop of thinner. And maybe 1 more drop of the poly. And like I said, this poly gives you the satin finish, and at the same time, durability. Now I'm going to shoot this right at the bench. When we do the, because this is acrylic, it's not gonna hurt me. There's nothing on my bench that's going to get hurt by the paint, and I'm only shooting 15 to 20 psi anyhow. So I will spray away a little bit. Actually, I'm going to turn my fan off over here real quick so it doesn't blow everywhere. I got this up to about 15 to 20 psi, and we're going to shoot this bad boy right here. You probably can't even see the paint coming out of the gun here. Well, it is. It's just very light. Again, folks, when you're painting with acrylics, lacquers, enamels, it doesn't matter. Key is to have a really nice controlling airbrush, and don't blast it on like it's, you know, going out of style. You don't need to. You put it on until you have good coverage. This is going over white plastic, so it's covering very, very nicely and easily. And what you can do is when you're done, you can just blow it off. A beauty of a dual action airbrush. Just blow this stuff off of here. That'll speed up the drying process. This stuff is so versatile, folks, and durable. And then I just blast on another coat. And you just sit here and you go in a circular pattern and just mist it on and get really nice coverage. Look at that. That is orange, folks, right there. Very bright orange. And that's what Tamiya says they want this bulkhead to be. That's what I'm going to do. But you see how this stuff, the pigment is so strong? It's fantastic stuff. You could do full bodies with this stuff. I've done it before. It's great. And it dries really, really smooth. This will dry with a nice satin finish. And it doesn't take long. And then it's durable because of the poly that I added. So this piece, I believe, is done for the most part. I don't see anything else that I need to do on this. Look at that. Really nice orange. I'm really, really pleased with that. Mission Models. It's really good stuff. You can get their paints at www.missionmodelus.com. That's missionmodelus.com. John Tamkin, Tamkin, is the president of the company. Super nice guy. Very talented modeler himself. And we kind of hooked up, and he wanted me to try out some of his paints. I have not been disappointed by any of the ones that I've used. I have a lot of his military colors that he has sent me. I'm hoping one day to use them. But once again, Mission Models. Awesome paint. Okay, now that we have the bulkhead painted, nice and orange, Mission Models orange, I took the liberty of assembling the top half, which is in step 2 here, onto the sides of the shell, because I noticed there's going to be some seams here as well that we're going to need to deal with and eliminate. And so now it's just time to basically sand this, clean it up, get rid of the seams, and maybe scribe a few areas. I like to use the backside of an X-Acto knife just to, you know, describe the areas, especially when you're sanding, because you're going to fill in these the seams that are supposed to be there, or the panel lines, with plastic material while you're sanding. So again, I just take the 320, and we're going to go ahead and not only clean this up and smooth out the putty area that I did with that Tamiya brush-on putty, but we're going to go ahead and do these seams on the edges, the ones up front here, to get them nice and smooth and uniform and make it look like all one giant piece. That's the goal here, is to get all that done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and start sanding on these, get them really nice, scribe the lines in a little bit carefully with a nice sharp X-Acto knife. That's what I like to use. It's my tool of choice for panel lines, to deepen them up a little bit by lightly scribing them in. You don't have to go crazy. You don't have to get too deep. And then what we're going to do is put this in primer. But of course, before we put the outside in primer, what we're going to do is lightly prime the interior piece here with an airbrush as best as possible, and get this area in here all painted in semi-gloss black. Now, what I like to use for that, just so you guys know, is I have a semi-gloss black lacquer that I use that's made by a company called SEM, or SEM. It's called Trim Black. Stuff is awesome. You can thin it with any type of reducer, automotive reducer I've found. It works really well. But it gives you like an eggshell, tough, durable black finish. That's my choice. You guys can use TS29 by Tamiya. You can use Model Master, semi-gloss black acrylic. It's just simply your choice. You can even get your zero paints if you want semi-black that they carry. Gravity, I believe, has it as well. But if you, it's just a matter of choice. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna continue sanding on these seams, getting them eliminated, scribing the panel lines where I'm filling them in or losing some detail by sanding these seams in all these areas. And then we're gonna get this thing in primer in here and then sem black. Then I'm gonna let that dry, tape it off, and then we're gonna prime the outside of the car to check all my work. Then base it in white, put it into the SF70 Rosa. Okay, so after all of that painting with the Gravity Colors gray primer, really smooth stuff, the titanium white from Gravity Colors, and then the actual Rosso SF70H red. It's a very, very interesting red anyways. It's super bright, but it's not orangey. It's still a rich red. Very cool color. It is now in base coat right now. Now, I'm taking a little bit of a different approach than I had told you before. I remember telling you I was going to airbrush the inside of the body with some SEM black. I'm not going that route. I am going to actually brush paint the interior of the car with some Model Master Acryl semi-gloss black, which goes on very well. If any of you ever use the Acryl line Model Master, you thin it with a little bit of their thinner, and it flows out really, really nice. So I'm going to do that because that way I have better control. I don't have to deal with all that masking just to paint black color inside the car. And I'll get as much as I can up inside this bulkhead with a brush as possible, and then install the orange bulkhead that goes in there, the cover. And then, but I'll do that after my clear. So here's what I'm planning on doing next, and this will be on the next video, everyone, is I'm going to apply the decals. A lot of skepticism out there. Well, Dave, you need to apply a coat of clear before you put the decals on. No, you don't necessarily have to. If you use the correct solvents, I've got plenty of Mark Fit. I've got the Mr. Hobby Mark Softener, Setter, and then I've got microscale softeners. That's all you need. And you will be able to get that decal to burnish down onto the area where it needs to very well without silvering. And then you clear the car. And the reason why I'm doing this, everyone, is because if I put a coat of clear on this, I like to use 2-part urethane clear. As a lot of you know, have watched my videos and are a fan of my work. I am a big 2-component clear guy as far as painting clear coats. Well, they're a little thicker, as everybody knows. And on this model, I really want all that intricate detail to be there. So I am going to apply the decals and then clear it, saving myself that extra coat of clear that could possibly, after I get done decaling and then applying another coat of clear, lose all of my my detail or some of my detail and get it too buried in the clear. Yes, with urethane clears out there, it's true. If you're not careful with them, you can bury the model in syrup, as they call it. And I don't want to do that on this model. I want this model to have a lot of nice panel line detail at all possible. So the clear will be thinned out a little bit extra when I paint it, and I'm going to do it right over the decals, which the decals will be applied to the base coat in the next video. Again, we're going to paint the inside of the monocoque inside, and then we're going to go ahead and apply all the decals to this area, clear it, most likely polish it, and then tape it off and shoot the semi-gloss black underneath. Because on the real car, it's not a gloss black underneath the car, it's a semi-gloss black. And really what it is semi-gloss finished carbon fiber on the real car. But we're going with gloss with a semi-gloss black on this portion of the area. Stay tuned for the next video. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, guys and gals that are watching. And please smash the like button for me on my videos. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate all of you guys watching my videos. Till next time, catch you later.